Everyone is familiar with the classic image of a spaceman, an almost alien-like figure clad in a bulky white spacesuit drifting through the universe with a visor so dark that it conceals the occupant's face. It's really remarkable that we've engineered such creations to survive out in space. With evolving technology, we are beginning to learn not just how to survive, but how to thrive as we take our first steps into the vast void. And this got us thinking, while the appearance of a spacesuit is well known, well, how do they actually work? What designs and engineering feats, almost bordering on magic, must be achieved to allow someone to live, even if only temporarily, in the vacuum of space? How have generations of design evolved to lead us to where we are today, and what might spacesuits tomorrow look like? Well, sit tight, strap in, and get ready to lift off with us as we answer all of those questions and a whole lot more. This was the spark that led to, well, one giant leap for mankind. Space, 1,000 ways to die. So, why would someone need a spacesuit? Might seem like a trivial question. Everyone knows that venturing into space without a suit will kill you faster than you could say, Houston, we have a problem. However, understanding why and how space can be deadly provides a valuable insight into the challenges a spacesuit's design must overcome. And let's start with the obvious, the absence of oxygen. You need oxygen to survive, and a severe lack of it will be fatal. Without a spacesuit, you will lose consciousness in mere seconds due to the lack of oxygen, and shortly thereafter, you're cooked. Because there's no air, there's also no air pressure, which is bad news for any moisture in your body. You see, liquids boil when their vapor point equals the ambient pressure. On Earth, the atmosphere maintains a certain pressure that keeps liquids in their liquid state. To convert a liquid into gas, you must heat it until the pressure differential is achieved. But in space, where there is no atmospheric pressure at all, liquids have a much lower boiling point, and that includes the liquids inside your body. Even a brief exposure to the vacuum of space would cause the fluids in your body to start boiling. You wouldn't feel the fluids heating up, but they would rapidly vaporize, causing your organs to swell from the gas before eventually just drying up and shutting down. This is a horrible way to die, and one that spacesuits, of course, are designed to prevent. Then there's the issue of temperature. Our planet's atmosphere protects us from the sun's harmful rays and keeps us warm against the frigid vacuum above. However, drop a person without a spacesuit into space and those protections, well, they vanish. During spacewalks, what are formerly called extravehicular activities, or EVAs, temperatures can range from a bone-chilling minus 156 degrees Celsius to a scorching 101 degrees Celsius. In such extremes, you'd quickly freeze or burn to death, and perhaps even experience both outcomes if you're extremely unlucky. On top of that, radiation and space dust pose additional hazards in the vast, dark ether, contributing to other illnesses and injuries. Now, as you can imagine, none of these factors are exactly helpful for an astronaut trying to do their job. That's why spacesuits are essential to getting intense work done in as safe a way as possible. Space is the most inhospitable environment that you could imagine. It certainly doesn't want you there. Therefore, your spacesuit doesn't just need to be good, it needs to be pretty much perfect. History of the spacesuit. Now, before we dive into how a spacesuit protects you, let's first explore the story behind its evolution. Back in 1958, humanity was just beginning to venture into the cosmos, subtly reaching for the stars while gradually realizing our place as a tiny pale dot in a vast ocean of darkness. NASA's first attempt at a man-in-space program was known as Project Mercury, although the Russians beat the Americans to that milestone in April 1961 when Yuri Gagarin became the world's first human astronaut. At that time, the closest thing to a spacesuit was the flight suit used by pilots, which was designed to handle the varying air pressures at high altitudes. The initial spacesuits, developed by both the US and the USSR, evolved from this concept. Now, back then, astronauts did not perform spacewalks, so the more advanced Apollo-style spacesuits, they'd come a lot later. Unlike those later designs, the Mercury suits were built to be worn inside the spacecraft at all times. Several modifications were made to the original pilot pressure suits, incorporating materials and designs better suited for the space environment and adding a closed-loop breathing system. But all in all, this first generation of suits was fairly rudimentary compared to the designs that followed. As humanity's ambitions to reach the stars grew, so did technological advancements. NASA's first spacewalks took place during Project Gemini, which ran from 1961 to 1966. These suits were simpler than those used today, yet they were more advanced than the earlier Mercury suits, marking the next evolutionary step in spacesuit design. While these suits allowed the wearer to exist in a vacuum, they did not have a dedicated life support system. Instead, they were connected via an umbilical hose to the spacecraft's own life support systems. After that came the Apollo spacesuits, which had to be capable of things that earlier models were not. For starters, these suits needed to protect astronauts who were walking on the moon's rocky, unstable surface where dust, sharp rocks, or small meteorites could potentially cause a fatal tear. Unlike previous models, they featured built-in boots designed specifically to handle the rough lunar terrain. They also incorporated a life support system, allowing Neil Armstrong and his colleagues to take several small steps and several giant leaps away from the lunar lander. In theory, this life support system even made it possible for astronauts to perform completely untethered spacewalks. This capability eventually led to that famous photograph of astronaut Bruce McCandless in 1984. And we have to say that it's surprising that the weight of his giant balls of steel just didn't pull him straight back to Earth. Truly, it is a uniquely terrifying prospect when one contemplates the challenges of space travel. And over the years, designs have continued to progress, becoming more ergonomic and efficient, ultimately leading to the spacesuits that we have today to protect Earth's astronauts as our species explores the infinite blank expanse. But how do these suits actually keep you safe today? What are all the bells and whistles on a modern spacesuit that ensure you don't freeze while your organs boil? Well, that's where things start to get real interesting. I will survive. Alright, so how do spacesuits keep you safe? It depends, well, on what suit you're talking about. Today, there are actually two types of garments classified as spacesuits. The first is the flight suit, dedicated to takeoff and re-entry. These fancy little orange numbers are the ones you commonly see in iconic shots of astronauts making their way to the rocket. However, they weren't designed for use outside the spacecraft. Instead, today, we're going to focus on the modern spacesuits that NASA designs to keep astronauts safe from the environment of space. Now, a spacesuit isn't clothing that you put on when leaving a rocket. It's a fully equipped spacesuit more akin to a little one-person spacecraft. For example, the formal name for the suits used on the International Space Station is the Extravehicular Mobility Unit. And think about that for a second. Do you have any item of clothing in your closet that could be described as a unit? I don't. So, what is a spacesuit? Well, the first layer an astronaut puts on looks nothing like a traditional spacesuit. In fact, it resembles something more akin to a set of pajamas. This layer is actually a liquid cooling and ventilation garment worn under the spacesuit. It's made of stretchy spandex rigged with dozens of small tubes that circulate cold water around the body to regulate temperature. Consider this. In space, there is no atmosphere to protect you from the intense heat of the sun. All that light and heat energy is either reflected by the outer spacesuit's white coating or absorbed by the astronaut. Moreover, spacewalks are not typically leisure activities. They usually involve very active, stressful work for hours on end. Naturally, this leads to sweating, which could cause the helmet visor to fog up and result in severe dehydration. These issues might be minor on a go-kart track, but in outer space, even a single mistake could send you spiraling out into the cosmos literally forever. Astronaut Eugene Cernan even lost several pounds during his spacewalk on Gemini 9, a sobering reminder that space, as beautiful as it is unforgiving, demands careful attention to prevent complications from an overheating astronaut. Thus, the water pajamas come into play. On top of that, we have the spacesuit itself, which is composed of two distinct parts, the pressure garment and the life support system. Now let's start with the pressure garment, the human-shaped portion that protects the user from the harsh environment outside. When examining this garment, it's most useful to do so from the inside out. With that in mind, let's delve into some of the 16 individual layers that make up the spacesuit as we know it today. The closest to the astronaut's skin is the cooling and ventilation garment, which forms the first three layers of the suit. Beyond this is the bladder layer, filled with gas to create the proper pressure for the body. This same gas is also what the astronaut breathes. For example, a spacesuit used by an organization like NASA is maintained at around 0.29 atmospheres of pressure, which helps protect the astronaut's organs from vaporizing due to pressure differences. Consequently, the cabin pressure inside the shuttle or within the airlock must also be reduced before an astronaut is suited up for a spacewalk. If the pressure difference is too significant, some astronauts can suffer from decompression sickness, commonly known as the bends, which can lead to serious health complications. Just like deep underwater diving requires special air, spacesuits can't rely on regular air either. In the low-pressure environment of space, using normal air would cause the oxygen levels in the blood to drop dramatically. Similar to climbing Mount Everest, where higher oxygen levels are essential due to thin air, spacewalks demand pure oxygen. In fact, astronauts use pure oxygen during spacewalks, even though both the shuttle and the International Space Station are maintained with an air mixture similar to that on Earth. This means that before venturing outside to, fetch the intergalactic paper, an astronaut must spend a significant period pre-breathing pure oxygen. This preparation minimizes the risk of developing decompression sickness by ensuring that the nitrogen levels in the body's tissues are kept as low as possible. Following this layer is what's known as a ripstop layer, designed to prevent a puncture from reaching the suit's most crucial cavity. This is especially important in space, where a sharp piece of metal or a small meteorite traveling at high speed could cause serious damage and even be fatal for the astronaut. The ripstop layer acts as a countermeasure. Even high-speed space dust could cause major damage under the wrong circumstances. Now, the subsequent layers serve as insulation, working like a thermos to help maintain the proper temperature inside the suit. Finally, the outermost layer is white and composed of several different threads. The white color reflects sunlight to keep heat to a minimum, and the 3 threads woven together provide a tough exterior. One thread offers water resistance, another's made of Kevlar, the same material used in bulletproof vests, by the way, and the third is fire resistant, aiming to cover all potential hazards that an astronaut might encounter. These layers are even resistant to radiation. Although the mylar coatings built into the suit provide some protection, the suit would likely not shield an astronaut from the intense radiation of a solar flare. For the background radiation in space, however, the protection appears to be adequate, which is why spacewalks are scheduled during less intense periods of solar activity. The hard upper torso of the spacesuit is both lightweight and strong. It connects the inner suit to the portable life support systems, the large backpack-like unit worn by astronauts. The suit is comprised of separate pieces that are assembled together. For example, the central upper torso piece lacks arms, which must be attached separately. The lower section consists of the pants, boots, and the lower half of the waist closure. It also includes a distinct piece called the waist bearing, which aids the astronaut in moving and turning at the hips. A seal then connects the upper and lower halves together. Over time, additional design features, such as special joints and tapers in the spacesuit fabric, have been incorporated to help astronauts bend their fingers, wrists, knees, ankles, and other joints effectively. Astronauts also need gloves that attach to the arms of the spacesuit, and they are a crucial piece of equipment given how much manual work astronauts perform during spacewalks. The ability to pick up and use objects with precision is absolutely critical, so these gloves are designed to be as easy to move and operate as possible, even if maneuvering inside a giant lumbering spacesuit. In space, the fingers are the parts of the body most susceptible to the cold, so spacesuit gloves come equipped with hand warmers to ensure an astronaut's hands remain agile and dexterous enough to handle tools outside the spacecraft. Now that explains the design of the suits, but what about the critical components ensuring astronauts' safety? These are encapsulated in the life support system and the helmet. Critical life support systems. Okay, so next we're going to delve into the most critical systems a spacesuit requires in order to keep its wearer alive beyond Earth's atmosphere. As we mentioned earlier, that backpack-looking component is a spacewalking astronaut's life support system. If anything were to happen to it while the astronaut is outside the shuttle, it could spell disaster. For starters, it contains the oxygen circulated throughout the spacesuit, which the astronaut breathes, while an internal fan continuously moves the air throughout the suit. Additionally, spacesuits are equipped with lithium hydroxide canisters to remove carbon dioxide, a technology similar to what is used to prevent suffocation in submarines. The life support system houses water that circulates around the astronaut's body by connecting to the underlayer for both ventilation and cooling. The cooling element maintains the water at the optimal temperature, while a pump ensures that it continually moves through the suit. In addition, the electricity needed for the suit's operation is supplied by the backpack, along with a regulator that controls the internal suit pressure. In fact, temperature, airflow, pressure can all be adjusted using the Display and Control Module, or DCM. Typically attached to the chest and sometimes operated via a wrist-mounted mirror, this equipment lets any astronaut enjoy a perfectly curated space experience while hurtling through the darkness at thousands of meters per second. Now, it's important that this balance is right, as an astronaut's situation can suddenly change. This level of control over the internal environment allows them to remain as focused as possible on their work. The life support system also maintains the communication links between the suit, mission control, and the shuttle. Most of this equipment, however, is stored inside the helmet, which is vital for any spacesuit operation. Interestingly, the communications element isn't actually a part of the helmet, at least not yet. Historically, astronauts have worn a communications cap that contains two-way communication equipment like headphones and microphones. This cap is sometimes called a Snoopy cap because it resembles the aviator cap worn by the cartoon character Snoopy when he's flying his plane. The helmet itself functions as a pressure bubble constructed from a strong plastic that keeps the suit's internal pressure contained. It also features a protective visor designed to prevent scratches or bumps. In addition, the helmet connects to the ventilation system that supplies the astronaut with the oxygen that they need to breathe. Beyond these essentials, space helmets incorporate several safety features and quality of life improvements. For example, the visor may include an additional deployable sun visor and gold-lined shades to protect the wearer's eyesight. This design choice is why many spacesuit helmets feature gold tints, not just for aesthetics, but also to enhance functionality. In terms of quality of life details, the helmet includes a small foam pad on the inside so that astronauts can scratch their noses. This thoughtful addition wasn't made arbitrarily. NASA clearly implemented it in response to early spacewalking experiments where itchy noses became a persistent issue. Astronauts unable to reach their noses while wearing thick gloves and, a massive helmet must have endured considerable discomfort, prompting someone to push for this change. The helmet also provides access to water, recognizing that working in one of the most inhospitable environments can be rather thirsty work. A device known as the In-Suit Drink Bag, or IDB, is mounted inside the upper torso and features a straw that reaches internally into the helmet. With the ability to hold just under 2 liters of water, hydration well addressed during missions. And there's even a little bit of food included. A slot built into the helmet holds a cereal bar wrapped in rice paper, which an astronaut can eat if hunger strikes. It's designed to be consumed all at once, otherwise crumbs might float around inside the helmet, and having one sneak into your eye is going to make the spacewalk, well, just a little bit more unpleasant. As a result, astronauts tend to avoid eating unless absolutely necessary, choosing instead to have a proper meal beforehand. And here's something that you might have wondered. How does an astronaut relieve themselves during a spacewalk? After all, their suit is completely enclosed. Nothing in, nothing out. Well, here's the answer. You may recall that the first layer of the suit was described as the cooling and ventilation layer. However, not entirely accurate. Underneath that layer, astronauts wear a garment called the Maximum Absorbency Garment, or MAG for short. Essentially, it's an astronaut diaper designed to collect waste during a spacewalk. We can only hope that the ventilation system works really well. So next time you consider that astronauts maybe have the coolest job in the world, remember that they might be forced to take a shit in their suits and then spend hours in their own waste while continuing with their tasks. Once the spacewalk is complete, the astronauts discard the MAG. Now, there are several reasons one might end up soiling themselves in space, and one of the most frightening is the possibility of getting lost during an untethered spacewalk. Imagine watching your shuttle hurtling off into the darkness, gradually shrinking into a tiny speck in the distance, all while knowing that you're facing a lonely, terrifying death in the vacuum of space. Astronauts who find themselves in such a situation are among the bravest people on Earth. Now, fortunately, this isn't necessarily a death sentence thanks to some rather clever technology. For example, the manned maneuvering unit was essentially a gas thruster-powered chair equipped with a joystick, which does sound pretty cool. Today, however, there's a component attached to the back of a spacesuit just below the backpack life support system known as the Simplified Aid for EVA Rescue, or SAFER for short. And look, we know NASA loves its acronyms to the point of obsession, but this one is really quite impressive. Equipped with several small thruster jets, SAFER allows an astronaut who drifts a short distance during a spacewalk to maneuver back to safety. In short, our spacesuits are evolving fast enough to help us overcome some of our most profound fears about existing in space. But what does the future hold for spacesuits? How can space agencies around the world continue to build on a design that has evolved over 6 decades? Well, let's have a look. Spacesuits of the future. Today, NASA is developing new spacesuit designs that incorporate modern technologies to create sleeker, more streamlined suits. These innovations aim to provide greater movement and dexterity while maintaining the high level of safety established by earlier designs. Much like the Apollo suits, the new models are specifically engineered to ensure safe operations on the surfaces or in the vicinity of other worlds, particularly the Moon and Mars. The Artemis 3 moon mission suit, for instance, has already undergone several iterations as NASA refines its approach to deep space exploration. This mission plans to send 4 astronauts on a journey around the moon, marking the first human presence there since 1972. If all goes as anticipated, the crew will don their new suits during the 2026 launch. Despite appearing quite similar on the surface, technology has made significant strides since the Apollo missions. Modern suits, along with the ones potentially being designed for Mars missions, are capable of tasks that the Apollo-era suits just had no shot of achieving. For example, these new suits are designed to be compact, lightweight, and flexible, allowing astronauts to walk across the surfaces of other planets much more naturally than the awkward bouncing observed with Neil Armstrong and co. on the lunar surface. Overall, astronauts will enjoy greater freedom of movement, and the suits will be engineered to be more abrasion-resistant, providing enhanced protection against the potential damage caused by rough, dust-laden terrain. On the new lunar mission suits, the lower torso incorporates advanced materials and joint interfaces designed to allow greater bending and rotating at the hips and knees, along with the addition of hiking-style boots to the design. These suits feature a new audio system built directly into the helmet, eliminating the need for a Snoopy cap. The integrated communication system includes speakers mounted inside the helmet and several embedded voice-activated microphones that automatically pick up when an astronaut is talking to mission control or crewmates. The helmet also offers a quick-swap protective visor that shields against rough debris on the moon's surface, and its more elliptical shape provides an improved view of the surrounding terrain and the astronaut's feet. This enhanced design gives astronauts better spatial awareness, addressing a major risk in older suits where tripping could potentially cause damage. Future designs aim to further expedite the process of donning a spacesuit by creating a one-piece suit that opens from the back, reminiscent of an Iron Man suit, instead of assembling many separate pieces. The suits for Mars will require even more attention. Mars has its own gravity and an atmosphere that differs from the Moon's, necessitating a different design, one that is likely to be reusable for many years. Nonetheless, we as a species will continue to iterate and strive for better spacesuits, ones that are even more protective, technologically advanced, mobile, and effective. The design journey has come a long way from the days when high-altitude jet pressure suits were retrofitted into entirely new forms. Now, with emerging technologies, our designs continue to evolve as we push further into the cosmos. Wherever we end up, you could be sure that a spacesuit we developed helps us get there, and that our children's, grandchildren's, and great-grandchildren's generations will be glad that we did. Although, chances are they'll still be taking a shit in a diaper. Thank you for watching.